Today I'm talking to Nicholas Dyer, photographer and author of the book Painted Wolves: A Wild Dog's Life. In order to produce this book, he spent 6 years following 3 packs of wild dogs on foot in Pool, Zimbabwe. Your photographs are incredible. When did you first get into wildlife photography?
So I haven't always been a photographer, but from the age of 8 I was absolutely passionate about it. I used to steal my mother's cameras, and I bought my first one at 16. But then we left Kenya, where I grew up, and went to the UK, and I worked in the City of London. And after that, I ran my own marketing company. It wasn't until 2012 that I came back here and realised that my passion was photography and that I could make it a full-time career. So I went back to Kenya and I bought a Land Cruiser, and I spent the last 6 years driving up and down Africa, loving and getting to know and photograph the wildlife.
And what made you choose Pools?
So in 2013 I first found Pools, and it's the only park in Africa where you can walk by yourself on foot. And I met these animals called the wild dogs, and I followed them on a hunt with a very experienced guide, and I thought, gosh, I'll never be able to do this by myself. But it was absolutely just the most exhilarating, exciting experience I've ever been through. And then over the years, with the help of guides, other photographers, I've learnt to walk by myself in the bush following the dogs, and that's been my life for the last 6 years.
So you obviously have fallen in love with the wild dogs. Why and what do they mean to you?
So I think for me, the dogs, there's 2 aspects of them. One, that they are renowned as the most phenomenal hunters. They're the most efficient predator in Africa, probably even in the world. 80% of their hunts result in kills. But not just that, they live in packs, and they have this incredible bond. They are deeply social. You can see that they care for each other. Each member of the pack focuses on a specific role, either a hunter or a babysitter for the pups. And I think that's the other point as well. Right at the heart of this is the pups, and they just absolutely adore them.
I found this book deeply personal. It comes across as a very emotional experience. What was it like being so close to these animals, and do you think they knew you?
Well, I think your dogs know you. They are canids, and so they, I think whenever I walked or came with them, after a while, I would always talk and also click my camera, send off a few shots, and they became very familiar with that sound, and they immediately relaxed. And I think being with them, following them on the hunt in the early morning, is seeing them make kills. Seeing them in their family life. It is deeply emotional, because you become incredibly attached to each and every one of them. And I remember when there was a dog called Tequila. She got taken by a crocodile, and gosh, I was absolutely distraught for days. Still am, just at the memory. So yeah, deeply so.
These animals are obviously highly endangered. What are the challenges facing the species?
They are varied. So historically, if you go back 100 years, there were probably 500,000 wild dogs in the whole of Africa. Today we're left with 6,500. So historically they've been treated like vermin. They were exterminated because they thought they were taking out cattle and goats and so on and so forth. So you actually got a reward for killing them. But now they're a protected species, but still they are regularly snared by in communities that are very poor communities that are trying to get bushmeat. They're run over. They're subject to distemper and rabies that they get off domestic dogs. Their numbers are at best stable, but probably still declining.
And what is being done to conserve them?
Across Africa, there's some phenomenal, really good programs. I work with Peter Blinston. He's the co-author of this book, he runs Painted Dog Conservation. Here in South Africa, there's EWT and Wildlife Act, and what they tend to focus on is, number one is obviously monitoring and studying the dogs and doing rehabilitation when possible, but more importantly, they work with the communities.
Most of your work has been in Zimbabwe. How does the situation differ between the dogs in South Africa and the dogs in Zim?
So in Zim, you would, and in the rest of Africa actually, north of the Limpopo, all the wild dogs are what we call free ranging. So that means they're not fenced in and they go wherever they want, which causes its own challenges, especially with communities and so forth. But they move around, they form their own packs, there's dispersals, they get together, so forth. What you have in South Africa is that most of the wildlife areas are fenced, and so consequently the packs need to be managed very, very carefully. And that's done very successfully by organisations like the Endangered Wildlife Trust, Wildlife Act, who really understand, in many ways, in terms of that management better than anyone else, of how to actually have the right number of packs for that ecosystem.
We South Africans really love the dogs, but here in South Africa they are known as wild dogs or even Cape hunting dogs. Why have you chosen to call them painted wolves?
Yeah, that's one of those questions that causes a bit of controversy, especially here in South Africa. I mean, I guess here in South Africa, most of the people here know exactly what a wild dog is. They live with them. Yeah. The problem with the species as a whole is that not only people don't know what they're called, whether wild dog, painted dog or Cape hunting dog or whatever, they don't even know they exist. And in Europe and in America, when you say wild dog, people just think there's some kind of breed of dog. They're just sort of like escaped, from a town or whatever and have ended up in the bush. It's totally untrue. They are a complete separate species. They are their own genus called Lycaon, and they're Lycaon pictus, which actually translated means painted wolf. And when the BBC decided to call them painted wolf, we realised that there was no organisation that actually, that does conservation that calls them painted wolf. And so one of the things that we did was to say, if we raise awareness of this creature called a painted wolf, we will gain a lot more support.
Tell us about the book. How did it come about? What are you hoping to achieve by publishing it?
So in 2014, when I met Peter Blinston for the first time in Manor Pools, it's a long story, but it was quite a funny incident. He sort of liked my photographs, and I went to Painted Dog Conservation and absolutely thought what he was doing was a model of what a conservation organisation should be. So we decided almost instantly, let's collaborate and do a book. That started a 4 or 5 year journey to actually produce this massive thing. It's far bigger than what we thought originally. But what we wanted to achieve was, one is to show, so in my section of the book I really focus on how they live in the wild naturally. It's how they live in Manor Pools when they're not threatened by human beings. And then in Peter's section, it really is where he works on the side of Wangi National Park, where there's a huge threat towards them from local communities, mostly unintentional, but they cause devastation. So consequently, it's really showing what can be done to save these animals. The other thing that we felt was really very important was that both of us really understood just how much these animals are threatened. And so we didn't really want to do this from an aspect of personal gain. We wanted to dedicate some of ourselves to this animal. So we haven't benefited financially at all of this. All the profits from the book go to an organisation we set up called the Painted Wolf Foundation, which is there to do 3 things. One is to raise awareness of the species throughout the world. We're very active trying to do that. The other is to support those organisations doing conservation for the dogs in the field. And the third is to try and bring them together to actually encourage best practice, knowledge share, and so on and so forth.
So the book is now going to be available in South Africa. That's very exciting, and I know what I'm getting my parents for Christmas. Where can I buy it?
Okay, so yeah, that is very exciting. So one of the things, we had distribution in the UK, but bringing it out here with the cost of postage, it's a heavy book. It weighs it's 300 odd pages, and it weighs about 3.5, 4 kilos. So I mean, it's not a light thing to ship. So we've gone into partnership with HPH Publishing, and they're being incredibly supportive to bring the book to South Africa. So through them we're able to get it into exclusive books. You will be able to buy it on their website online. So it's going to be very much available and a lot cheaper than having to ship it out from the UK.
Thank you so much, Nick. That was really interesting. It's fantastic such a beautiful book is coming to South Africa. Even better is all the profits are going to the dogs, the wild dogs.